Joining me today is Stephen Dickens. He's a well-known industry leader with deep mainframe expertise, and he is CEO and principal analyst for HyperFRAME Research. Thank you for joining me, Stephen.
You say all the right things, Amanda. Thank you for having me. So I think the way I look at it is, and the analogy I use is, you should think about the platform you choose in the same way you think about platforms, vehicles to take a journey. Just because you can rent an electric vehicle from Hertz doesn't mean that the train is obsolete, doesn't mean that putting containers on a boat and taking them through the Panama Canal is no longer a valid form of transport. I think what we've seen over the last few years is cloud was everything. As that's matured, what are we, 18 years into AWS now? I think the narrative has started to sort of dissipate of we've got to throw everything in the cloud. What we're seeing, AI is driving this with cloud repatriation workloads coming onto x86 in people's data centers. I think what we're seeing at that enterprise architect level now is people are taking a more balanced view. And when you take that balanced view of, do I need a car? Do I need a train? Do I need a boat? Do I need an aircraft? Lots of different ways to make a journey, lots of different platforms. Then when you look at what the mainframe's really good at, it's a high security, highly available transaction engine, then it makes sense. So if an enterprise architect's taking that balanced view, then the mainframe's going to have a long-term future. So I think we've realised that the cloud is the right platform for certain workloads, but it's also not the right platform for other workloads. So I think there's this level of pragmatism. We're also seeing people deploy what I would describe as a hybrid multi-cloud approach. Mm-hmm. So it's not just one cloud provider like an AWS or an Azure or a Google. People are thinking about typically being in 4 or 5 different clouds. Maybe they've got a few SaaS applications, maybe they're using SAP as a SaaS service, they're using Salesforce, maybe they're using something like a MongoDB as an Atlas service, plus they're using AWS, plus they're using Google. Then they're thinking, okay, where do I want my sovereign data? Then they're thinking, where do I want my most mission critical transactional systems? That whole landscape has matured. I think so we've moved away from a cloud first to a hybrid cloud strategy. So we're seeing regulations like DORA in Europe, the Digital Operational Resiliency Act, drive that for some of the financial services. I think we're going back. It's interesting, I'm going to a conference in a few weeks' time where it's called PlatformCon. It's the rise of platform engineering. You look at what sits behind platform engineering, they're mainframe disciplines just with a new name. So we're going back to site reliability engineers, we're going to recovery point and recovery time objectives, people thinking about how we architect for resilience. So a lot of what has been a mainframe discipline for years is just coming back with a new name. So I look at my daughters and they're wearing flared jeans. The analogy is just what old is new is coming back again. If we're going through that cycle.
Yes, we are.
I'm not going to comment on ladies' fashion, but I've got teenage daughters, so I see.
I mean, I don't know why you didn't wear the flared jeans to the conference.
Maybe just not a look for me. I don't think I'd accept the premise of the question that we're lagging. I still think I'd just describe it as we're early. So I think if you look at enterprises' adoption of AI just in general, the mainframe's tracking at the same speed as where they are for sort of AI in their call center with their call center application, Copilot deployment on laptops. I don't think the mainframe's lagging. I think there's 2 really obvious use cases for AI on the mainframe. Code explanation. So you've got a monolithic COBOL application, you want to put that through a WatsonX or a BMC AMI Assistant. You want to be able to understand that code base and be able to compartmentalize and turn it into a microservice. AI is perfect for that. COBOL, it's a language, large language models are perfect for it. Be able to understand that code base, explain it, document it, and be able to microservice and take it forward. Perfect use case. The other one, And we're seeing this with tools like Broadcom's Watchtower. You've got hundreds of SMF records creating ridiculous amounts of sort of alerts. That's just too much alert fatigue for an operator. The ability to curate and pull that together, that's a perfect thing for AI. Mm-hmm. So those two use cases. So first off, I don't accept the premise that we're lagging. I think we're just where the industry is. And then I think those two use cases are going to be what we see as adoption first. Okay. And then obviously what IBM's doing with the hardware later this year, we'll see a whole bunch of new inference and fraud and use cases that leverage the hardware. If an organization thinks this is a secure platform, that can lead to complacency. I think the one thing I would rephrase that is, it is the most secureable platform, and that implies you've got work to do in order to secure it. The tools are there, RACF, Top Secret, Z Secure. There's a whole bunch of tools, there's a whole raft of vendors. Been doing some great work with Maintegrity and some of their stuff. You know, I was meeting with the Rocket team around multi-factor authentication in terminal emulators. There's some fantastic technology out of there, but you've got to deploy it, you've got to implement it. So I think the challenge is, as the mainframe becomes a first-party constituent in a hybrid cloud, you're going to have more things connecting to it. It's going to be interfaced to more different applications, more different platforms. You've obviously got to secure that because it's typically where your crown jewels of data sits. So I think framing all of that as it's a securable platform means you've got work to do. So you need to be working with pen testers, you need to be actively engaging with software vendors, you need to be looking at role-based access control, you need to be deploying multi-factor authentication. You need to be doing all those things. You can't just sit there and go, the platform's secure, I don't need to do anything. So I think the first thing is they've got to sign up to effectively challenge the situation. If an organization just sits back and says, we're going to get off the mainframe in 10 years so we don't need to do anything, and then 10 years from now realizes it's got a problem because it didn't work on workforce demographics, is that the platform's fault? I don't think so. I think that's the HR department and the leadership's perspective, because we all know that those mainframe migration projects, either if they're successful, and there's not that many cases, take longer than you think, and a lot of times they don't happen because they fail. So I think the first thing is the leadership of these mainframe organizations needs to take on board the challenge. So once they've decided that they're going to take on board the challenge, chat to IBM, chat to BMC, chat to Rocket, chat to Broadcom. Broadcom's Beyond Code program. They'll lend you people through their sort of Beyond Code program. There's fantastic student programs. You know, some of the numbers that were in the data that I've seen about the amount of students that IBM's putting through what used to be Master the Mainframe program. There's thousands of students out there. The onboard Rocket do a course to learn COBOL in a day. Now people are going to roll their eyes and say, oh, you can't learn COBOL in a day, but it's just a programming language. The time it used to take to have a system programmer be operational has reduced massively. It used to take you about 5 years to skill one. With some of the AI tools, some of the code explanation, some of the I think we're down to a couple of years. So it's now at the point where these organizations have say, Fred, Sally and Jane are going to retire in the next 5 years. What are we actively going to do to replace that skill base? We've got 5 years to think about it. Let's embrace some of those programs and tools that are out there, because you can absolutely train the next generation of mainframers. So I think with what IBM's doing with Telum 2 and SPire, we're just going to unleash inference on the mainframe. So I think the platform's obviously got a strong track record. What are we coming up on 61 years now as a transactional engine? When you then put DPU capability on there to unlock AI, we're going to see new workloads come to that SPire processor and the Telum 2 processor, and unlock new use cases, reduce the time to fraud check, instead of being able to sort of take a fraud management case in a credit card and maybe pick a small number of transactions to look for fraud and take a representative sample. I can now do everything. So I think we're going to see that as the first use cases, but I see the new technology unlocking a whole raft of other things once it starts to get into the shop. It may do 2 or 3 things on the initial, like that's the reason you buy it. But once it's in, it's like, well, what else can this thing do? And I think we're just going to unlock. And then obviously IBM's going to continue on innovate. We're then also going to see the other software vendors deploy their large language model based solutions on the SPire processor. And that's going to spark off. What else can they do on the mainframe with an AI accelerator? Mm-hmm. What does that mean for BMC? What does it mean for Rocket? What does it mean for everybody else in this space? So I think we're just at the start of a new sort of flywheel of activity and innovation. I'll probably give more than one. Think about skills and get proactive. Think about security. It's secureable, not inherently secure. And then speak to the vendors about how you can unlock a next wave of innovation using AI. So it would be 3 pieces of advice. You got 2 extra for free.
Awesome.